Hey, what's up? My name is Bobby.T, and I'm a content creator here in Canada. And today we're going to talk about how to step up your game in being a virtual keynote speaker in 2021. Back in November, I had a great opportunity to help out with a production team and a keynote speaker here in my city named Shawn, where he was basically doing a series of live stream keynote speaking. In this time, I was able to help him out with several of his virtual keynotes, and I took the opportunity to kind of pull the veil behind the scenes and get more context on sort of some of his tips, tricks, and ultimately ways that he was producing some amazing pieces of content. Just recently, Shawn was recognized as being the best virtual keynote speaker from Forbes magazine, which is an awesome acknowledgement and an overdue acknowledgement for the amount of work that he puts into each speech. So without further ado, this is my top 6 suggestions on how to become a better virtual keynote speaker. Be a subject matter expert in your field. This goes as obvious as without saying. However, it's super important that you are actually a subject matter expert in what you're talking about. Because you're on a virtual screen, yes, you can have a lot of scripts and information, but when it comes to Q&As, when it comes to engaging with your audience, when it comes to taking your content online and having people messaging the DMs or have conversations with you, it's very important that you are actually experienced and knowledgeable in your space. So that is like the most important step. Step number 2 is building out your space. Setting your stage is everything. In Shawn's case, he's literally in a theater, which allows him to present his keynote in a more traditional but virtual setting. For everyone at home, I'm sure you're looking at this wondering, well, what the hell? How did he do that? And there's many different stages that are being unused right now in 2021. So why not just check in and ask some of your local theaters, venues to see if you can rent their stages for likely a cheap discounted price. And it will help you better connect with your audience online. If you're sitting down on the same desk that you're used to of just working, you're going to be conveying like that. You're just going to be speaking in that context. What up, getting some stuff done. Gotta go presentation mode. Hi, everybody. I'd like to give you a presentation on how to be a professional in whatever setting you want to be professional in. So step number 3 is creating layers in your keynote. The first layer I want to talk about is text and graphics. Showcasing text and graphics on your screen is very important to help convey what is going on, but this is not a PowerPoint presentation. Giving a PowerPoint presentation alongside a virtual keynote is the quickest way to lose your audience. We're talking about the 3 essential things you need for cooking: water, salt, and cooking oil. Yes. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. It is more challenging than ever to keep people engaged because your audience is likely at home, totally surrounded with distractions. You have to pull them in and keep them motivated and keep them engaged throughout your whole entire presentation if you're trying to make sure that you leave a lasting impression. One item that Shawn would do, which would always bring a lot of contextual layers to his keynotes, is he would, the day before, make sure that whatever current events or pop culture activities was happening, he would add that into his presentation.
The foundational concept here is that the most precious asset in the world is attention. The most precious asset in the world is attention. And if you haven't realized this today, but it is also the greatest weapon on the planet. I mean, this is why today Mark Zuckerberg said, listen, over the next 2 weeks, until we get a peaceful transition in the States, we're going to be banning Trump.
The second part to adding layers to your keynote is pre-rolls. Because people are going to be virtually tuning in to your keynote, you have a huge opportunity to add pre-rolls to help emphasize your story and bring some livelihood into what you're doing.
Mazen, can you do me a favor and drop the Cybertruck right here? Look at this thing. Look at this thing. It is audacious, it's ugly, it's striking, and only Elon and Tesla could come out with something just like this.
Pre-rolls just add another layer of depth into their conversations, and it allows people to just wake up from what you're talking about and see it from a different perspective. Being creative with your pre-rolls will help move your story, move your conversation forward, setting up yourself for success in the next stage. The last component that you can potentially add on adding layers to your keynote is a green screen. Green screens are fun to put yourself into different atmospheres, different places, and depending on what you're talking about in your keynote, it is a great layer to do. Now, all those things I just listed and adding layers is heavy in production. It takes work, it takes time. It requires a lot of skills to add those, and you have to work with different individuals or go to YouTube and find how to do that yourself. But if you're working to step up your game, you can just add these layers to increase your engagement. Step number 4 is really practice makes perfect. Because of the complexity, depending on the way that you're doing this and the stage that you're setting up, doing a dry run and a practice in terms of each component and how you're going to execute on each aspect of your keynote is super important. In a virtual keynote, it's no longer just simply rehearsing your message and practicing what you're going to say. It needs to be deeper to that. There is a production aspect to the experience. Your keynote should be more than just you talking. It should be an experience for all the audience to properly and effectively engage. Step number 5 is experiment. I have witnessed in a live production how Shawn has quickly, in the moment of a blink of an eye, out of his own feelings, shot a pre-roll while the virtual keynote moved elsewhere onto another individual. And in that time, he quickly shot a pre-roll, edited it, contextualized it, and then had it ready to go for when the cameras came back on him as he was the host for this virtual keynote.
I actually live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and we're gonna go down to lunch and see if we can convince some people to be CPAs. So let's go. Hey guys, I'm Shawn Kanungo. Is anybody here an accountant, by the way? Anybody here an accountant? Anybody want to be an accountant?
And my last step, number 6, work with a production team. If you cannot yourself execute on all these aspects, it's very important to work with a production team. Shawn's production team is Bad Films, made up of 2 individuals, Mo and Mazen, who are phenomenal in the work that they do. And they have been just running and gunning since this whole new life that we're living in. Peace, love, and I'll talk to you soon.